How did you use media technologies in the construction and planning, research and evaluation stages? For my research, I mostly used the internet, starting with Bubble to create mind maps to help me decide what genres I could choose from. After choosing my genre, I created a mind map to look at the codes and conventions of a psychological thriller, letting me look at what I needed to include in my trailer. I then went on to Google to look at posters from films of the same genre as my trailer was for me to being analysed. I also started looking at magazine front covers from Total Film and Empire for me to look at how they laid out and the type of house style they chose depending on what type of film was featuring as their main article. I also analysed the way they placed photos on the page to give me some idea of what I could do with my own poster. I also used YouTube to look at trailers as the same genre of the film to look at how they structured the trailer and get the best clips to keep the audience's attention. Once again, I used Bubble, this time in my planning because I created a mind map of the themes that I would employ in my trailer. I created my production schedule, location recce's and my budget in Microsoft Word in my planning stage because I had to treat this as if I was actually creating these products in a real life situation. The technology I used in construction of making my trailer are iMovie to choose the footage to import, Final Cut Pro to edit my footage and put clips together, Motion to create the titles and GarageBand to create my soundtrack. After taking my footage, I uploaded the footage to the Mac. Then through iMovie I imported the footage I wanted to start editing. After importing the footage, I started a new project on Final Cut Pro, then started choosing the clips I wanted to use and start piecing my trailer together. Once I had an outline of what my trailer was going to be like, I went into Motion and began creating my titles. I looked through many templates before finding one that would fit the aspect of my trailer. I chose a template that faded in and out to reveal the titles similar to the ones in the trailers I've researched in. I changed the font from the original template because I wanted the font to look quite romantic because of the subgenre of my trailer. I also chose the colour red because it can represent the girl's love and or blood. Now I had got my completed trailer including titles, I exported it into GarageBand where I could begin piecing together my soundtrack. I started by finding loops that I could fit with my genre of my movie, such as looking into dark and intense loops as well as synths and strings to add tension to the piece. I also used GarageBand to edit some of my movie soundtrack because there was some sound I didn't want the audience to hear. I adjusted the volume curves throughout the soundtrack to some points you could hear the music behind the footage and sometimes you couldn't. One point I did this was when I had the footage of the boy being tied to the chair, being worried and breathing heavily, so I adjusted the volume so the music went quieter and the movie soundtrack louder. In the process of making my magazine front cover, I used Photoshop. To start, I added the photo that I had taken at the beginning to place where I wanted it to see if it needed cropping or editing in some way. The most editing I did with my cover photo was look at the brightness and contrast to make the image a bit darker to add some tension to the photo. I then focused on placing my cover line because with every magazine I researched they will place their cover lines in different places to create different effects and to catch the reader's attention in a different way. After this, I looked at where I would place all my other text on the page, such as my masthead, which typically goes at the top of the page. but I also had to look at where I would be placing other text such as puffs and plugs. This led me to the decision of adding banners to fit in other information about what else was included in the issue, because I couldn't just place the text on the page by itself. I also used Photoshop to construct my film poster, because in the same way as I constructed my front cover, I needed to look at the photo and see if it needed editing in any way before adding text to it. I started with cropping the picture down because you saw part of the scene that I didn't want the audience to see, as I wanted their focus to be on the character and the wall and nothing else. After cropping, I looked at changing the shadows and highlights of the image. This effectively made the audience focus on certain parts of the poster more than others, but also added some eeriness to the image. And finally, after editing the photo, I started to place the text on top of it, moving it around until I got my film title where I wanted it to be, so it would also catch the audience's attention. I then added other text such as the release date, the website, and the names of the main actors and other people involved in the production. I have used various technologies throughout the making of this evaluation. To start with, I have used Prezi because of how I wanted to structure my evaluation, with being able to create very visual presentation, as I can show more than one of my products at a time. My presentation is able to flow from one point to the next with ease because of the path creator, which allow me to decide what the viewer sees next. Prezi also has allowed me to work creatively using various features such as the insert tool, enabling me to add images from the internet or my own files as well as YouTube clips without having to access the link separately. I have also added my own handwriting to the evaluation by using a graphics tablet, which allow me to add an even bigger personal touch. I also used the image of an iPad to display most of my work in, because it's a fairly new piece of technology that is becoming more relevant and more well known in today's society. Finally, after creating the Prezi, I use QuickTime Player's screen recording facility to record my voice over the presentation, so I'm delivering it directly without the need for separate notes. Thank you for watching my presentation.